There are nights when music doesn't just fill a space, it transforms it into something sacred, something eternal. When the three voices of Il Volo rose into the ancient Roman stones of the Arena di Verona on that warm September evening, carried by the masterful baton of Plácido Domingo and cradled by the Orchestra della Fondazione Luciano Pavarotti, something far beyond a performance unfolded. This was communion. This was memory made manifest. This was Granada, sung not just as a song, but as a prayer to the spirit of Luciano Pavarotti himself, on what would have been his 90th birthday. If you've ever felt your heart break and heal in the same breath, if you've ever understood that music can reach places words cannot touch, then you already know why this moment mattered. You already know why, months later, fans around the world still speak of it in whispers, as though afraid that saying it too loudly might somehow diminish its magic. The evening arrived cloaked in anticipation. 20,000 souls filled the ancient amphitheater, each carrying their own relationship with Pavarotti's legacy, each hoping to witness something that would honor the man whose voice had once made the very heavens weep. The orchestra settled into position, musicians who had played alongside the maestro himself now preparing to celebrate his memory. Then Plácido Domingo emerged, his presence alone enough to send a ripple of emotion through the crowd. Here stood a legend honoring a legend, and when he raised his baton, the silence that fell was so complete you could have heard a single tear fall onto ancient stone. Piero, Ignazio, and Gianluca stepped forward, three figures in elegant suits, their faces already betraying the weight of what they were about to attempt. Granada is not merely difficult, it is a mountain to climb, a storm to weather, a flame to hold without flinching. Agustin Lara's masterpiece demands everything: technical precision, emotional vulnerability, and the kind of passion that cannot be taught or rehearsed. It must be lived. And as the opening notes swelled from the orchestra, as Domingo's hands shaped the air with decades of wisdom, the three young tenors began to sing, and the Arena di Verona held its breath. Fans who were there described the first moments as almost unbearable in their beauty. The way Piero's voice emerged first, tender and exploratory, like a confession whispered to a lover. The way Ignazio's tone added richness and depth, grounding the melody in something ancient and true. The way Gianluca's soaring passages seemed to paint the Alhambra itself across the night sky. Many in the audience were seen wiping tears before the first verse had even concluded, and you could sense it, this wasn't just excellent singing. This was three souls bearing themselves completely, offering their artistry as a gift to the man whose shadow had inspired their entire journey. Then came a moment that viewers around the world shared how this performance stayed with them long after. During the second verse, as the orchestra softened to barely a whisper, Domingo turned slightly toward the trio, his eyes glistening, and nodded with such profound approval that it seemed to say, "Yes, boys." He would be proud. In that instant Il Volo seemed to grow taller, their voices gaining a new dimension of power and certainty. It was as though Pavarotti himself had blessed them from beyond, as though every hour they had spent studying his recordings, watching his performances, trying to understand his magic, had suddenly crystallized into this single, perfect offering. The technical brilliance was undeniable. The way they navigated the song's treacherous high notes with such ease and beauty that it seemed effortless, though anyone who understands classical singing knows the years of discipline such moments require. But what elevated this performance beyond mere excellence was the vulnerability they allowed us to witness. Between phrases, you could see Piero close his eyes, gathering himself. You could watch Ignazio's hand move almost unconsciously to his heart. You could observe Gianluca looking upward, as if addressing someone who existed just beyond the lights. These weren't performers playing a role. These were devoted students honoring their greatest teacher, and the raw emotion was almost too much to bear. Did you feel this moment too? If you've watched the videos that have circulated since that September night, have you noticed how the camera occasionally captures members of the orchestra themselves pausing, instruments temporarily forgotten, simply listening? How the great Plácido Domingo, who has conducted thousands of performances, seemed more moved than perhaps any other night of his illustrious career. The Arena di Verona has witnessed nearly 2,000 years of human drama, but on that evening, it witnessed something rare even for those ancient stones, the perfect marriage of past and present, of legacy and promise, of grief and celebration. As the final notes approached, the entire arena seemed to lean forward collectively. Granada's conclusion demands everything a singer possesses, and Il Volo gave it freely, their voices intertwining in harmonies so pure they seemed to shimmer in the air like heat rising from summer pavement. The final high note, sustained, powerful, yet somehow still tender, hung in the darkness for what felt like an eternity before dissolving into the night. Then silence. Complete, utter, breathtaking silence. 10 seconds. 20. 30 seconds of 20,000 people unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to do anything but stand in the presence of what they had just experienced. When the applause finally erupted, it came like thunder, like waves crashing against cliffs, like every emotion the audience had been holding suddenly released all at once. Standing ovations can sometimes feel perfunctory, expected. This one felt necessary, inevitable, as natural as breathing. Fans described shouting until their voices gave out, crying without shame, embracing strangers who had become family through shared witness to something transcendent. Domingo embraced each member of Il Volo, and the way they clung to him, these three young men who had achieved so much yet still carried such reverence for those who came before, told its own story about humility, gratitude, and love. Which city's performance touched you the most during Il Volo's journey? Because while this September night in Verona stands as a singular triumph, it also represents something larger. Il Volo's ongoing mission to carry the torch of Italian classical crossover to every corner of the globe. From sold-out arenas in Japan where audiences bow in silent appreciation, to roaring crowds in Latin America who sing every word alongside them, to intimate European theaters where the acoustics make every phrase feel like a secret shared between friends, these three voices continue to prove that some art transcends language, nationality, and generation. Have you ever felt music like this before? Have you experienced those rare moments when a performance becomes more than entertainment, when it transforms into something that marks you, changes you, reminds you why being human, with all its beauty and heartbreak, is worth celebrating? This is what Il Volo offers, consistently and generously, and why their interpretation of Granada on Pavarotti's birthday wasn't just a tribute performance but a promise kept, a legacy honored, and a future assured. In a world that often feels fragmented and divided, where differences are emphasized and commonalities forgotten, Il Volo reminds us of music's unique power to unite. An Italian trio, conducted by a Spanish maestro, performing a Mexican composition, in a Roman amphitheater, honoring a beloved Italian tenor, for an audience drawn from every continent. This is the language of art, which requires no translation because it speaks directly to the soul. Let us know in the comments which Il Volo performance has touched you most deeply. Share your stories, your memories, your moments of connection with their music. And if this article has moved you, consider subscribing and sharing it with fellow music lovers who understand that some performances aren't just heard, they're felt, remembered, and treasured forever.